Thank you. Thanks for inviting me on this last session of the last day. And I really appreciate the people in the room that are here. So, no disclosures. So, what do the credentialing organizations require? Well, they require 60 basic, 25 advanced MIS cases, 35 upper endoscopy, 50 colonoscopy, 09 FLS exam, and then they came out with the FES mandate as well for those graduating in 2018. Why? Well, because skills matter. We've heard a lot about this. As skills improve, complications go down. And you know, some of the interesting things is these aren't just, this is a study that I'm sure you're all aware of, the Brickmeyer study, but the complications that these patients had are not just complications that relate to anastomotic leak or bleed. They relate to readmission, ER visits, and other complications. And that's because even technical skills, they affect your cognitive load and your ability to recognize other things that may need attention at the time of surgery. So technical skills matter. We know this. So we'll start with FES, and the question is, do you do this yourself or do you take something off the shelf? That's kind of how I understood the the topic. So I'll tell you kind of what's on the shelf and then kind of what we do. And so on the shelf, there's the the ABS curriculum for flexible endoscopy, and it's actually a great curriculum. It uses chapters from the SCORE module, and then basically you don't need a simulator to do this. Okay, so you can basically observe your residents on their endoscopy rotation. You do gauges for colonoscopy, gauges for upper endoscopy, and when they achieve certain proficiency, certain preset levels on those gauges scores, then they're ready to take the FES exam at an FES testing center, which is a simulator-based exam. Another option for the didactics is you can just do it online. It's available for free online. And again, there's a 6-hour didactic online, and then you take the online test that includes a didactic and technical component. What about simulator-based training? Clearly, there's a cost associated with this. We saw that the less expensive simulator works, and you can get to proficiency training on it. And there's obviously the more expensive simulator, which is actually used for testing, and there are now testing modules that are there for extra money that you have to buy that will prepare you better for the test. Of course, everything's extra money. So what do? Well, first of all, we find an expert, and it's a retired surgeon. It's a retired gastroenterologist, and he basically spends time with our residents that are on their endoscopy rotation. We did buy the Symbionics simulator because we are an FES testing center, and so they practice on it. They practiced on doing the gauges on their endoscopy rotation, and then they take their tests. FES. So the FES curriculum, it is not required. It is highly recommended. Fundamental use of surgical energy. It's a 10-hour didactic, 1.5-hour exam, also available for free online. And and you could certainly argue that everybody needs to do FES that works in the operating room, right? I mean, from the nurses, anesthesia, all the surgeons, right? I mean, it's one of the most fundamental things that we should know, except there's nobody in our OR that is going to stand for doing a 10.5-hour didactic and then an 1.5 hour exam. That's just not going to happen. So what we did is we pirated certain videos that we found to be high yield from the FES website, and I talked to them, and they said that was cool. And we basically kind of made a few, like a Cliff Notes version of FES, and we have an annual fire drill, and that's how we disseminate the materials, to our staff at the annual fire drill, which everybody's mandated and required to attend. So that's what we do with FES. The FLS, I think that, as was already pointed out, there's a surrogate proficiency standard, and so everybody's familiar with this. And so what we do is we don't want to have our residents take and pass FLS in their early years, because they're really not going to get into the OR doing some of those skills until their second year. Plus, the FLS certificate is for 10 years, so we actually, and then it expires. So we have them take it in their senior year, but we do want them to be proficient in their intern year. And so in their intern year, they achieve proficiency, and then they actually take the final exam in their senior year after they've already been doing laparoscopic surgery. So that's how we approach the FLS. And then there's the issue of ALS, or advanced laparoscopic surgery, and this is kind of a little bit more of the homegrown aspect of it. And I was always fascinated why people that were top guns on FLS, they'd get into the OR and they couldn't do a cholecystectomy. And so we were working on more advanced type of skills, and some of the reasons maybe that they can't do advanced, more, even basic laparoscopic surgery in the real world compared to the box simulator. Maybe some of these reasons is outlined above. Difficult anatomy, hands close together, small working space, handling off-angle camera view. And so we worked on a consortium of hospitals and simulation centers, and we just modified the FLS trainer box, put the hands closer together, put the camera off to the side. I mean, this is totally homegrown. Put things on off angles, made a needle passing task, made a restricted space, a suturing task, a continuous task, and interrupted suturing under tension task. And we're currently in the process of trying to validate this as well. So the conclusion is that every institution, I think, has different training needs. So you can't say off the shelf is better, or what you have, do it yourself is better. But I guess the main point that I would have is don't focus too much on the simulator itself. Look at what is required at your particular institution to achieve your proficiency standards. And you may need to invest some, and it's going to, we could talk about later about the financial aspect of requiring an investment to get some of these higher cost items for your institution, and why that's required. But just keep your eye on the proficiency standards and not the simulator itself. So that's it. Thank you very much.